Welcome to NFL Daily, where this is definitely not the least favorite thing Ian Rapoport is going to do today. I'm Gregg Rosenthal, and I am talking to Rap Sheet, the number one insider of the game, a man I would not mess around with or ever question his information, whether in a Starbucks or a Pete's or a Coffee Bean or a Dunkin' Donuts or anything else. Ian, thank you for joining us on a busy Minicamp Tuesday.
Yeah, actually busy. I mean, it's June 10th and there's actually things going on, which, is a rarity this time of year, but kind of the last blip before we all go away for the summer. So yes, we got some things.
Yeah, and we will get to who's showing up, who's not, but I did want to kind of answer anyone wondering what I was referring to off the top. You have a colonoscopy later today, and for you to do this show and do all the NFL Network stuff today shows what an incredible professional you are. But if you're a little irritable, it's because you haven't been able to eat, in a while before that. So
yes, I have drank soup. Clear soup is all I'm allowed. But I mean, it is what it is. Everyone our age needs to do it. So all good. I'm annoyed.
Oh man, I've done it before. That juice they have you drink, that's a problem. Let's talk about happier things. Contract holdout. So this is the big news on June 10th is who's showing up, who's not. And we're taping this on the West Coast morning, and we already know basically the big names who are not showing up. And I want to just kind of go through them one by one with you and think about what this means long-term for them. TJ Watt really stands out to me. He is not at Steelers training camp. This is what happened a few years ago when he went through his contract negotiation. Where do you think things stand with Watt and the Steelers?
I would say, first of all, I do think it gets done. Hard for me to imagine a world where TJ Watt does not finish his career with the Steelers. Hard for me to imagine a world where he's not one of the higher paid defenders in the NFL. It's really just a matter of how much. And this edge market is like a little bit in flux. You have the Myles Garrett deal, which is, really big deal, massive deal, right around the time of free agency. And then, you have all the guys who are sort of clamoring to get as much or close to that or more. And then that's really the question. Like if you're TJ Watt and, Myles Garrett got $40 million, but there's definitely some, big numbers in the back end of that deal. It's a great deal for him, but certainly some numbers in the back end. How close to that deal are you willing to get? Does it have to be 40.5 or can a nicely structured $36 million, $37 million, $38 million deal? I mean, these are all the questions. And so you have TJ Watt sitting out with no deal yet, just like you have Micah Parsons. He's at mandatory minicamp, but no deal yet. You have Trey Hendrickson, no deal yet. A lot of times when the market is in flux and you're waiting on deals, that causes a delay as much as anything else because guys you don't really want to be the first one because then everyone leapfrogs you after that.
It's a good call, and it makes me think about, another Browns contract that gave other teams problems around the league, the Deshaun Watson contract. I'm not saying Myles Garrett's contract is to that level. Obviously, we don't expect Myles Garrett to fall off, although he is an aging defensive end and usually wouldn't get a big deal like that. But I do wonder if the leverage that Garrett had in that situation, them not wanting to let him go, he wanting to get traded at that time, is almost creating problems for the rest of the league. Because that was a bigger deal, I think, for Garrett than I expected the Browns to give him at this point of their career. I thought they might actually think this is a good time to trade him. We could get something good for him. They decided not to, maybe because how dark everything else is in Cleveland.
Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting because, they could have gotten a ton of picks, just a boatload for him, with the goal of saying, if you're going to trade Myles Garrett, first of all, you're rebuilding. Immediately, you're rebuilding. Whatever happens, whatever you get, trade Myles Garrett indicates you're rebuilding. The only reason you do that is if you say, I need number one picks for next year because next year I'm going to take a quarterback, so I'm getting future ones to load up for a quarterback. Okay, well, they did that. They didn't trade Myles Garrett. They paid him, but they did that in the draft when they moved from 2 to 5. So, that, to me, was probably the decision. It was if we're going to sign Myles Garrett and give him a lot of money, where are we going to get the extra picks from? Okay, it's going to be going from 2 to 5. So that's kind of how they handled it and hopefully, put themselves in position to take a quarterback. But I think, look, it's a big number. Myles Garrett's leverage was he didn't want to be there and said he wanted to get traded. And if you're a team, you want to call his bluff, you want to force one of your best players into an awkward situation of daring him. You can do it. You can definitely do it. It's not always pretty, and everyone notices. So they opted for the easier solution, which is just pay him a lot of money. He's going to be worth it, but it definitely made the market take a little bit of a jump.
Well, and you're paying these guys, and Watt is in a similar situation. Hendrickson's in a similar situation. Max Crosby just got paid huge money when he wasn't even close to a contract year, and they just keep giving him big raises. And so you're paying, it's a little risky for past production. They're getting towards the back half of their career. Hendrickson is the one who is also out of minicamp and is maybe the biggest issue, the biggest problem, I think, for the Bengals, because are they really going to pay him what it would seem to require to pay him, which would be somewhere at least in the vicinity of Max? Basically, that he's in that ballpark of Myles Garrett and Trey, and that it's maybe 2.5 years of good guaranteed high, whatever it's going to be, 35 plus, guaranteed money per year for 2 or 3 years. Yes.
I don't know that he needs to beat Max Crosby to get a deal done. Like, I think that's probably the target. I don't know that he needs to beat Max to get a deal done. I think it needs to be kind of in that vicinity, in the, probably 30 plus range. And, the overall average per year is important. It's always important. I think security is probably as important. So, Trey Hendrickson seems to me like he's fighting for, multiple years, not just the overall number. He wants guarantees through 2025 into 2026, maybe beyond. It's not really the kind of thing the Bengals do. They make up for it in other ways. They give you big upfront cash numbers, for instance. But what he wants is to go through next year and not say, is the team going to move on from me? Am I going to be cut? I think it's fair. I think his ask is fair. I think it's going to happen. I think doing things like moving on from Jermaine Pratt probably help. Just hasn't happened quick enough for his liking.
And yet they don't have their first round pick signed either. Shamar Stewart is there at camp, but he's not practicing. And it just feels like it's always something with the Bengals, and that they could have potentially avoided this with Trey Hendrickson. Of these pass rushers, Micah, who is at camp, to be clear, and we'll see like how much he does. Probably the expectation is that he doesn't do that much. Who do you think of the pass rushers maybe goes on the longest and is the biggest issue going into August?
I mean, I think Micah's probably last if I had to guess. I would say, my thought is he should be the highest. I think that makes sense. And if you're going to be the highest, you got to be the last. And so I don't sense a ton of urgency on his standpoint. From his standpoint, it's like, no big deal. Everyone do your thing. Like, Cowboys signed Dak 2 hours before kickoff last year. Like, it got done. I don't know that it goes there this time, but
is that smart though? Like, is that good business? Like, why are these teams doing this? Like, didn't they see what happened with the 49ers, for instance, last year, and think like maybe that was part of why things didn't work out for Brandon Ayuk and different things like that? Like, stretching it out is not good business.
I mean, yes, but if you're a player, why would you want to take a deal now? There's not a lot of deals being done now. So like, if I'm Micah Parsons and I'm confident that I'm going to be okay health wise, and even if I'm not, I'm going to come back sooner rather than later. Why would you take a deal early? Like, what could they offer you to make you take a deal now? Because that the very next thing that's going to happen is for TJ Watt or whoever to be like, that's my new target. So it makes sense, doing it last. Now, Dak was different because he was going to be the highest paid no matter what. And his leverage was really like, I'm just going to go be a free agent. But for a lot of these guys, it's like, it doesn't help them to do it early. So teams have to overpay early to get it done early, like the Browns did with Myles Garrett, and that's going to save them some money, but it did make the market jump a lot.
Terry McLaurin also not at mandatory minicamp. This happened with him 3 years ago. How do you see that going?
So you know what's funny about that? I read that this morning that this happened with him 3 years ago. I didn't even remember that.
No, neither
did I. I tracked this as much as anyone. I did not remember that he sat out. That's kind of, with all due respect to these guys who are taking hard stances, that's kind of where this goes. It's mandatory minicamp. It's June. there's not a ton of people besides the hardcore fans paying like that close attention right now. You want to make sure your team's okay, but like it's June 10th. So like whether or not a player practices for a couple of days, like I don't get the sense teams really care about this. It's just a sign like, all right, this player is going to take a hard line. Okay. McLaurin's deal is hard. He's a great player. He's been a face of this franchise. He has been kind of one of the mouthpieces of this franchise for a while. And where like who's his comp? Like, should he make in the 30s? Should he be CeeDee Lamb?
No.
Like, should he be, T? Like, what is his comp? Like, who is just like him? And I think that's really hard because he is fast. Size-wise, he's not the biggest. He's been really productive when he's had a quarterback and looks like he's going to be have a really good year, but is a little bit older. Like, these are hard deals to do. And, like, I'm looking at it, and if you like, usually if you say, like, this guy should be paid like this other guy who's just like him statistically, it's like that's not that hard. I don't know who Terry McLaurin's comp is. That's a challenge.
I mean, numbers-wise, the injury messes it up. Like Chris Godwin isn't like a crazy one, different sort of player. But he is turning 30 years old. I think he gets a premium because he's been one of the pillars of an organization that struggled and kind of an example of like, this is who we want to be. This is Mr. Washington. This is Mr. Commander.
Right,
so
if you're the new regime, do you go, well, thank you for taking the bullets for the old regime. We're now going to give you a couple more $1 million just because of that. Or are you like, that has nothing to do with us?
Right.
I mean, I don't know the answer. Like somewhere in between, I think is probably the answer, but.
The very starting floor, I would say, would be like the Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle deals. Now, they're much younger, but they were also a few years away from free agency. But those are like high-level number 2 receivers, and Terry McLaurin's above that. So I would say he'd have to be above that before he accepts it.
Right, but if he wants 30, I mean, that's, what would Waddle get? Waddle got 30, right?
I think if you messed around with the numbers, it wasn't that crazy in terms of the guaranteed money. It was definitely like a slot
Smith
below.
Was 25, right?
Right. And T. Higgins is an interesting comp there because even though T's younger, Terry McLaurin's ultimately been a better player. So I don't know if I would accept less than that. And they do get fined. It's up to, I guess, $100,000 for these mandatory mini camps if they miss it. But the team can choose to waive that, I believe, or it just doesn't really matter because you're going to get some.
I don't think so. I'd have to go back and check. But you can add $100,000 onto a deal and make it make sense. Yes.
Right. Some other guys who aren't there today. Jonnu Smith is not with the Dolphins, so it looks like he might get dealt, or if nothing else, he just wants a new contract. Jalen Ramsey is not there, and I know you've reported is not necessarily expected to be with the Dolphins. Kind of where do you see those two situations?
Ramsey first. Yeah, I don't expect him to be with the Dolphins. I mean, the Rams make a lot of sense. I think that's, he's had success there. The relationship's good on both sides. If you say to me, like, what makes the most sense to me, Jalen Ramsey landing with the Rams is probably it. It's a hard deal to do. He's due $21 million. He is a great player, but he's due $21 million, at a team. Like a lot of times, these teams, by the time you get to June, they've paid what they're going to pay. Like they have some budget for their own guys. Like I think if you're the Rams, Kyron Williams probably gets a new deal at some point. That makes sense, but where were you planning to spend $21 million in June? I think that's part of the problem. So if the Dolphins will eat some of it, I think you'd probably get a deal. They'd probably have to eat a significant portion. But then if you're the Dolphins, you're like, wait, why am I eating money to give a really good player to another team? Like what pick would be worth that? And then if you're the Rams, it's like, well, you have to trade him because he's obviously not showing up. So like, why are we giving a good pick? Like this, I'm just explaining why these deals are such a challenge to do. You say like, oh, well, obviously Jalen Ramsey is going to end up with the Rams. It's like, well, coming up with the value is hard. Jonnu Smith wants more money. I would be surprised if he got traded. I wouldn't be shocked, but I'd be surprised. He wants a lot of money. Had a good year, really good year, best year of his career. So like this is the time to maximize. But if you're the Dolphins, it's like, well, right, but this is why we signed you to like a 2-year contract. So we have you under contract for 2 years. So I see it from both sides.
I couldn't help but notice at Mike McDaniel's press conference today, he's asked about it, and he just doesn't seem to be having as much fun as he used to. Let's listen to what McDaniel said when asked about these guys who weren't there.
Just confirm Jalen Ramsey not here.
Oh, he is not here. We are focused on building the Dolphins today, and anything outside of that any sort of distractions I'm not focused on.
Are you surprised it's taken this long to find a resolution with the team?
I don't personally, and I would lump you into this with me. I don't give a shit about what I feel. I'm not. I don't even really go down that road of how do I feel about it. My job is to react and control my controllables and make sure that people are moving in one direction appropriately.
How do you think Mike McDaniel is doing right now? Because it's June and he doesn't seem like, I don't know. There's just a lot going on with Miami. Last year was not an easy year for him. He was talking about Tua today and just saying how important it is to keep Tua on the field. Just like, how do you view this entire Miami situation right now?
I think it's probably been a challenge. I mean, Mike McDaniel came in as, one of the kind of hot young coaches, really creative, cool dude, talks cool, dresses cool, kind of a fan favorite a little bit. And, has had some success, but I think it's fair to say, like, not the wins everybody has expected or wanted, right? It hasn't really happened playoff wise for them. And they spent a ton of money on some really big time players like Tyreek and Waddle, and Chubb is making a lot of money, and Tua is making a lot of money, and just
Jalen Phillips, Ramsey. You're right.
I mean, a lot of guys making a lot of money and not a lot of wins. So I think if you're Mike McDaniel, you probably know, and he signed a little extension before last year, which gave him some security last year. But you probably know you got to deliver this year, and it's all the things. It's Ramsey, you guys and the Dolphins and Ramsey coming to a point where you're like, all right, it's best we part ways. Well, it's like, all right, well, last year he was a huge part of our team. We paid him again, and now he wants, he's sort of planning to be out. It's like, hold on 1 second.
All right, as we're taping, Ian has to stop down and report the big Josh Oliver contract with the Vikings. I just love seeing how the sausage is made through the magic of editing. Our listeners will never be the wiser. Also, Shaq Thompson, the former Panther, longtime great Panther, finds a familiar home with Sean McDermott, who was with Carolina, of course.
I was in that. That's some interesting depth.
Oh,
interesting. Matt Milano, sort of the injury situation you wonder about, like, obviously Shaq Thompson you wonder about too. It's probably a cheap deal. He's a good leader. I kind of like that deal.
I like that too. Give him another chance. I know he's getting older, but maybe less is more with him if he's coming off the bench or fewer snaps. Definitely a leader for them. You mentioned Micah Parsons showing up. Trevon Diggs was also there. The one other player showing up on Tuesday that interested me was Kirk Cousins. It's kind of a reminder. Oh yeah, like he's still on the Falcons. Like, what, do you think that ends at some point? Is this awkward? Like, how is this going?
I sort of think that the Cousins thing goes where it's always gone and where I've always thought it's headed, which is nowhere. I mean, to me, it's weird because, like, I remember during the season I talked about how the Falcons had no plans to, trade Kirk Cousins, no plans to release Kirk Cousins, and they could even see him as their backup this year. And I remember everybody thinking I was crazy, and I kept being like, why is this crazy? They've already paid him. Like, if they cut him, they just pay him anyway. If he stays, he's one of the best backups in the NFL. So, like, why would you cut him, right? Like, the only thing you really care about is what if your starter gets injured. That's it. The only thing that matters is, do you have a backup quarterback that can keep you alive if something bad happens to your starter? And, like, I know Cousins wants to be a starter, obviously did not play well last year, but he's a great backup. So like, you paid him $90 million, going to be $100 million. Like, okay. So he doesn't want to be the backup. Like, okay. He's not going to get back any of the money. You're not going to get back any of the money. He's your backup. That's it. I don't really see anything wrong with that. And I think everyone will be okay with it.
I guess it depends on if he wants to be a pain. He hasn't been at voluntary work. I know that on paper, that's not like Kirk Cousins' MO, but this is a young quarterback. You just might not want to deal with it. I think in their perfect world, the quarterback carousel would have aligned differently and they would have gotten a decent offer, but that didn't happen.
Right. But like, yes, if someone was going to take $10 million off him, I think they would have been okay with it. And they still might. Like, some starter goes down in training camp, that's everyone's first call. Right? So, probably. Yes, maybe somebody saves the Falcons. They say, all right, I'll pay $10 million for a bridge starter and a draft pick. Like, now we're talking. But, like, again, what if Penix gets injured? This is a team that's built to win now. They should be good enough to win this division, or at least be, in competition to win the division. What if your starter gets injured?
Fair. A couple more things with you. Okay. I saw you on McAfee, and you do a great job there. And he's asking about Aaron Rodgers, and you mentioned how Aaron Rodgers, the contract comes out, he takes $10 million base and like $13 million with incentives, and you say, back in the day, Tom Brady took less and Breeze took less. It kind of makes sense. Rodgers is taking less because of the team around him. My question would be, is he really taking less, or did he just not have any other options? And this level of compensation reflects his play last year.
I would say this. He doesn't have to accept this. Like, if you're the Steelers, you don't say to Aaron Rodgers, like, all right, we love you. You're our starter. We're just going to pay you as little as possible. We good on 10, guaranteed 13 a week because you didn't really play well. He might have just said, like, cool, I'll see you later. I'm going to the beach. Like, that's it. So, like, if you're the Steelers and you're trying to sign Aaron Rodgers to a contract, the way you negotiate it is this. It's very simple. What would you play for? We would like to sign you. We don't have a ton of money. It's June. What would you play for? Now, they did this deal earlier, but I'm just saying, like, what would be okay? 20 okay? 30? 30 would have been okay. Like, it's what would you play for? Because, would there have been competition? Yes. If Aaron Rodgers was willing to play for a team that was not very good, then I think there would have been a lot of competition, and he would have been able to earn into the 30s, probably into the 40s. But
wow. From who?
From anyone who wants a quarterback.
There's not that many teams out there. I guess Indianapolis might have.
There aren't now, maybe. But like, this is not reporting. Okay, we're having a discussion. This is not reporting. I have to say this for the aggregators who steal stuff anyway without even caring. But whatever. Let's say
Kleinman is the worst. You're the worst. ML football also terrible. They can aggregate that. It's not from you. It's from me.
They all steal stuff all the time. It's literally what they do.
But they're just bad at it. Like, RotoWorld is an aggregator too, but we had a code. Try to do it the right way. You give the credit. You do the thing. Anyways, they're terrible. Sorry. That's me talking.
Thieves. Anyway, it's true. Anyway, so let's say you're the Titans. You love Cam Ward. You know you're going to take him. You don't want him to start. Like, who's bad for signing Aaron Rodgers? He has land in Nashville. I don't know if he actually has a home, but he has land in Nashville. Having Aaron Rodgers come in for $35 million and be your starter, taking all the pressure off Cam Ward makes sense, right? To me. I don't know that he would do that because they don't have a chance to win. Like, there's other teams. Like, that's just one example. I mean, if I looked at the thing, I could probably go through. Several teams could have used a future Hall of Famer who could come in and be at very, very worst an above average starter. I think he could have gotten a lot more money, but you take less because at some point, and I said this on McAfee and they kind of all laughed. I really think he's been uncomfortable recently making so much money. Like, he has an agent who negotiates to the hilt, and Dave Dunn, who does a very good job, has always gotten a lot of money for his clients. I feel like Rodgers at some point is like, maybe I shouldn't make so much. So now he's not making so much.
Okay, I'm not going to laugh at that. The only thing I would push back slightly on is he's just not in the same part of his career that Breeze and Brady were because his level of play. No, because Brady was playing at an MVP level. Breeze had a terrible last year, but even going into that last year, he was still playing at a high level. So his last contracts that he signed, he always stayed as a top 10 type of quarterback. The thing that I think that's gotten lost.
Same concept. How about Peyton Manning took a $10 million pay cut or whatever it was before last year?
But he also, until that very last year, and then he retired, stayed at an extremely high level. The thing I think has gotten lost in this whole Aaron Rodgers mix is he has not been at that level. I would say he was a average to below average starter his last year in Green Bay. Then he tore his Achilles. And then last year he was somewhere, he was below average. And if he, let's say, wins 9 or 10 games, he will be the second quarterback in history to be this old and win that many games in a season. The only other one being Tom Brady. The history is not great for guys at this age playing at a high level. And I just don't think he did last year. And I think that's part of it too. The last thing I'll hit you with, you don't even have time for the mailbag, so we'll skip that. Anthony Richardson, your frenemy from many years ago in Boston, Albert Breer, I believe reported he's getting a second opinion. First of all, how's your relationship with Bert these days? You guys would really go at it. You were climbing the corporate ladder at the same time. And he reported that Anthony Richardson, was getting a second opinion on that shoulder. First comment on Breer, I think.
He's a good friend of mine.
Oh, okay. I just remember you guys were both in Boston. You both wanted to be national. I was at Pro Football Talk at the time. You were trying to get your clips onto Pro Football Talk. You were maybe trying to get jobs nationally. You were asking if we knew, and I could see these. He then went to Dallas. You had to separate at one point because only one could win.
Dallas first, and then Boston, then NFL. No, it's funny. So we competed hard. He was always a rival in Boston, but we were also friends. And I was not friends with everyone on the beat. I'm friends with Mike Reese now, but we were cordial, but I would not say we were friends at the time. Shalise.
What does that say about you though? Because he is such a good guy, Mike Reese. So if you can't be friends with him,
I could have been. I just wasn't. At the time, I was kind of this is how you, and it wasn't just me. When you compete hard for every piece of information, it's hard to be really good friends. But Bert and I were friends. That's my we were friends then. We're friends now. We still compete, but we're friends. And it's a good to realize that you can compete really hard with someone and still be cordial or too friendly with them, and it doesn't really matter. Anthony Richardson thing, I would say this: everything out of India has been he's fine. He's going to be fine for training camp. It's the same shoulder. It's the same specific body part. After he had surgery on a year where he's got to go out and perform, it's not great. It's not great. I don't know what's going to be the outcome. I know every rep is important. And I think for Daniel Jones, getting all the reps during mandatory minicamp, it certainly paves the way for him to be very much in the mix for training camp. And we'll see what happens to Richardson. It's been, I'm sure, frustrating for many in the Colts building, but this is a reason you sign someone like Daniel Jones in case something like this happens, or in case he just wins.
Yeah, and hopefully they get the Daniel Jones from before that neck injury, because man, it's worrisome that he needs a second opinion, that it's the same shoulder that's been the problem before.
Well, no, hold on. Everyone should get a second opinion. I don't know that he quote unquote needs one. Everybody should get one because team doctors are awesome, but they work for the team. Everyone should get a second opinion.
That's absolutely fair. And I like how you not only get the news with Rap Sheet, but you get some lessons in life in terms of competition and friendship. You have matured over the years, Ian. We all have. We're getting old. Good job by you.
As my colonoscopy shows, I'm getting old.
I know, because I'm amazed you could do 30 minutes, because when I drank that liquid, I wasn't sitting anywhere for 30 straight minutes that day. That was trouble.
No, I haven't done it yet. I take it a little later. I actually have it tomorrow. So the prep starts in an hour or so. So it'll be real.
Well, good luck to you with that. You're going to need it. All right. Thank you to Ian. Great job by him on a tricky day. We will be back later this week. We got Jordan Rodriguez, Patrick Claybon, a lot of mini camps, a lot of teams ending the offseason. And yes, when we're talking about, Rap Sheet getting a colonoscopy, I guess football's back. I don't really know.